Look at that, where it says experts suggest your standard of living be reduced by 85%. Years ago, I was saying their goal is to bring the standard of living of the Western nations about 75% lower than what it is now. And here they're saying 85%. That is the goal.
85%.
Yes, here they're saying 85. That has been their goal all these years, is to bring down our standard of living. All right? About 75, and now they're saying 85% from what we're used to, ladies and gentlemen. Why is that? Because as our standard of living goes down, the standard of living of the developing nations goes up, and we have what? It's called equity. And we have equity throughout the world, ladies and gentlemen. The only problem is that your equity is going to be a lot less by the time that it matches that of the rest of the world. So in other words, what they are doing right now as we lose our middle class is they are transferring the wealth of not just the middle class, but they are transferring the wealth of the Western nations over to those nations that are underdeveloped. That's what's happening. It's a huge wealth transfer, ladies and gentlemen, and it's you that's going to pay for it. Have you ever asked yourself why it is that a company that makes the exact same prescription medication A, costs 100 times more in the U.S. than it does in Mexico? In Mexico, it costs $2. In the U.S., it costs $200. In Vietnam, it costs 50 cents. In the U.S., it costs $200. Why? Because we, by paying these elevated prices here, are subsidizing the cost of those same medicines for those countries that pay a lot less than we do. That is, in other words, a transfer of your wealth going to other nations. And this is the exact same thing that they're doing with climate change. Because you don't hear Miss Thunberg, if that's how you pronounce her name, you don't hear her bitching about China and their 2 coal plants that they open every day. You don't hear her bitching about any of those places. Why? Because those are the places that, while their standard of living is going up, ours is supposed to be going down, i.e. transfer of wealth. That's what it comes down to, ladies and gentlemen. It always comes down to, and something that I always get in trouble for, people saying, because I say that money is everything, it always comes down to money. Why? Because money represents your time, it represents your labor, therefore it represents your freedom. And when they take away your standard of living and lower it, what they're doing is they're stealing your labor, your time, your freedom. Why? Because now you're having to work 5 times as much to get the exact same thing that you did 5 years ago today.
It says the Pentagon's moving forward to letting AI weapons autonomously make decisions on the battlefield. Basically, hey, we're going to make this work and let it, decision to kill people. Lethal weapons can automatically detect their target and make autonomous decisions to attack them. This is a report by the New York Times that further talked about AI-controlled drones that could work on an automatic basis. One thing I did notice in this thing is that notably the U.S. is the foremost in the race to develop what the report called killer robots. Now, don't ever think this is just for war, folks. If the things ever get bad, you don't think they'll turn this on we the people?
So check this out, Ray. If we get a CBDC, a centrally banked digital currency, what's going to happen is you're going to walk into the supermarket, right? And there's not going to be any cashiers. There's not going to be anyone in the supermarket. You're going to grab a cart.
Right.
You're going to go pick your 20 items or whatever it is. And as you put those items in the cart, as you're putting them in, the amount of that item is automatically being deducted from your digital wallet. So if your digital wallet has $100 in it and you put in a box of cereal that's $2, as soon as that box of cereal hits the cart, your digital wallet goes down by $2 to $98. If you take it out and put it back, it'll add it, right? And then you're going to take that and you're going to walk out the door. But as you're walking out the door, guess what's going to be at the doorway? There's going to be an AI robot to make sure that you're not stealing anything. To make sure that if you're walking out the door and your CBDC digital wallet was overdrafted and you shouldn't be walking out with that food, that you don't walk out with it. So that's the kind of future that I can see with these AI robots. Another thing with these AI robots, I can see them on the streets, patrolling the streets. Oh, you jaywalked? Well, you're going to get a citation right here and right then, and you better not mess around with an AI robot, because it can probably kill you easily. And they're going to be able to use these, and it's going to be for our own good, of course. These AI robots, when they first start to come out, it's going to be for your own good, ladies and gentlemen. They're going to be to better humanity. This is all part of this cycle of the human experience called the fourth turning. And we're going to continue to go through crisis, crisis, crisis. Unfortunately, the thing is about one of the cycles that we are now getting towards the end of is that major war cycle. We have a major war cycle that's going to take us all the way through about the middle of 2030. And which means that between now and the middle of 2030 is very likely that we start a major war, a world war, where not millions of people will perish, but more than likely billions. And I mean, there's nothing that we can do about it. Be good with your creator. Pray. Ask for forgiveness, and what happens, happens. But I do know this. Be prepared.
Now, like I said, a lot of things are open to speculation. These are things that are just topics that we come across and things that are in the news media. But it says the U.S.-UK sabotage potential peace deal between Ukraine and Russia, says former UN Assistant Secretary General. The peace deal that could have seen Ukraine war end soon after it began was abandoned owing its Western interference, according to a new report. Mr. Schulberg said there is little doubt that peace negotiations failed owing to resistance from NATO, the United States, and the UK. It could have ended 5 weeks after it started. We didn't want it. We did not want that, folks. Well, not us, but our governments.
No, and I talked about this a while back. I said that what Russia did when they went into Ukraine in the manner that they did, it was a huge gift to the central banks. Because, great, there's two things. Well, there's really one thing that allows a central bank to print as much money as they want. There's one thing. That's war. As long as the people are on the side of war, a central bank will print as much money as they want or think that they need because they need money in order to get the resources that they need to fight the war. And remember that for like the last year or so, almost 2 years or so now, the M2 money supply has been going down, which means that money has been getting destroyed. So money has been getting pulled out of the system. And when you have a debt-based system, the worst thing that can happen is for money to be pulled out of the system. But nonetheless, as we're pulling money out of the system, that is a very bad thing for a system that's debt-based like our system is. So what better thing than to start a war, or than to have a war where you have no problem with printing trillions of dollars. The United States, in a matter of 2 years, ended up printing about 30 to 40% of all of the money that ever existed in our nation since the beginning of our nation. So there's no better thing than war, to continue to print money and to continue to bring debt to life, which is what will keep this monetary system alive and what will keep the government alive. Because without a fiat monetary system, this government loses its power. Once we make the government adhere to how much money it can spend, where they have a limit because they're using gold and silver to back up the dollar, then we will have the power once again. But until then, they will have the power over us. So a debt-based monetary system by nature is a Ponzi scheme. So it can't last forever. And no fiat currency has ever lasted forever. Every single one of them has gone to zero. But by the time that a fiat currency goes to zero, it would have raped the people of so much of their wealth that the people will have such a bad taste in their mouth once that currency goes to zero, that they will insist as a collective, after they've suffered, they will insist that the next monetary system is sound money based or commodity based. And we will see the United States of America have a much lower standard of living. Right? I think we will be a second, if we're lucky, we'll be a second world nation. All right? Maybe a third world nation. And I'm not saying this because I want to see that, but mathematics doesn't lie, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, I will see that people that were able to bring gold and silver to the new paradigm will be much better off, not only than they are now, but much better off than anyone else in the future that did not bring any of their wealth forward with them because they kept the paper instead of turning it into real money.